Good evening. Welcome to the April 2019 meeting of the New Bern Historic Preservation Commission. Morgan, would you like to call the roll?
Yes. David Griffith.
Here.
Sorry. Dr. Ruth Cox.
Here.
James Woods.
Here.
George Bragg. Here. Jim Bisbee.
Here.
Joe Klotz.
Here.
Christian Evans, absent tonight. Ellen Sheridan. Here. And that's everyone.
Very well. We do have a quorum.
Yes, we do have a quorum. I skipped over George. I'm sorry, George. George Bragg.
Here.
Yes, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. I noticed in our folders this week that we did have minutes available for review. Would anyone like to make a motion to dispense with the reading of those minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Are there any substantive or factual corrections to the minutes anyone would like to offer? All right, hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as is?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We'll go ahead and give the introduction to the start of our hearings. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It's responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, and is based on the U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HBC include approving applications for certificates of appropriateness, or we call COAs, and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who receive notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, Commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinion, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decision on an application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. Morgan, would you like to swear in anyone who will present tonight?
Absolutely. If you're going to be speaking or commenting, presenting, please come forward real quickly. All here. Is that everyone? Okay. Hands up. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening is true to the best of your knowledge? Yes. All right, guys. Have a seat, please. Thank you.
All right, very well. Here's just a quick summary of the procedure that we will follow for the hearings this evening. For each application, the HPC administrator, Morgan, provide an overview of the application. The applicant or representative will present the application to the Commission. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing may present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information will be directly affected and may present evidence also. The HPC administrator will present the staff's findings and recommendations to the Commission. The applicant or representative will then have an opportunity to make any final comments on their application. Then Commissioners will discuss the evidence, may ask for clarification from the applicant or presenters. Eventually, the Chairman will call for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated findings of fact. Motion is discussed by the Commission. Chairman will call for a vote on the motion by the Commission. A COA can be approved with conditions, or denied. And with that, we have a pretty substantial agenda this evening. Warren, we have a couple items, old business. I think one has been dispensed with.
Two.
Two of them.
I'd like to request that items A and C under old business be removed from the agenda this evening.
And that is 225 Broad Street and 1208 National?
That is correct.
Okay, 225 Broad Street is being withdrawn at the owner's request?
Yes, it was withdrawn at the owner's request via email, and I'm getting with them the coming week to sort that out. And under 1208 National, we are removing that from the agenda.
Okay, very well.
12 ways.
What do you,
It's not on the agenda. It's not on mine.
It was added, it was added late.
yeah,
So
it
we're gonna-
wasn't on the version I printed earlier today, but I think it was added later.
We're not going to hear it this evening.
And just as a reminder, 1208 National Avenue was an after-the-fact application about window replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
you remember. We found some concerns over the ownership issue, so we are removing that from the agenda this evening. We're going to revisit this another time with a corrected application.
All right, very well. First item of new business then?
We have one for old business.
Oh,
Sorry.
correct. 516 East Front Street.
Yes, this is a request from Mr. C.R. Francis Architecture, Ms. William and Lee Bell. This is a request to include the elevation of a contributing structure, installation of a retaining wall, additional concrete steps and walkway, fill in the primary ABC, in addition to a contributing structure in the secondary and tertiary ABCs, the demolition of a terrace in the tertiary ABC, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Francis while I pull up the application for you all.
Now, just to be clear, we saw this application 2 times at design review, but not yet for hearing.
That's correct.
It did not come up last month.
No, sir. This is fresh.
Okay.
Have not received this letter at that time.
We had
Correct.
to wait on the historic preservation office to weigh in because it's a little more elevation.
Just so you all know, probably you do, we just received this about 15 minutes ago and have had only a chance to cursory review it, but I already take some exceptions to it because the person obviously does not understand the geometry of what we're trying to achieve. But leave that as it may.
And we've only just received it ourselves, so I'm pretty sure everybody's just reading it for themselves first time right now.
Yeah, but we submitted they've seen the whole entire package like we did, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And John Wood visited, was it this Monday or this past Monday? And he went and saw it himself, and he took some visuals of it, but it was a cursory. And this is new evidence. I received this late last night, very early this morning, and we have been in training all day, so this is new evidence for the board to consider if you're willing to consider it. Okay. And here is, would you like us to jump to the visuals, or would you like to go over the application from the very beginning?
Well, let's just take a look at the application and allow Mr. Francis to present.
Well, I'm not sure I can handle this. If you had a mouse, I'd be fine. Everybody can read that.
All right, here you go. I'll let you have that. Is that good for you?
Basically, on the project information, due to the recent hurricane, which is now 7 months, I believe, past, we propose to raise the house 3 foot 6 inches. As such, we plan to install a low retaining wall adjacent to the sidewalk and bring the level of the ground to the top of that wall. That wall will be roughly 21 inches along the East Front Street sidewalk. Then we would grade the yard up 22 inches to the foundation and rebuild the steps matching the existing. New concrete steps would be placed at the sidewalk, and the existing gate would be relocated to approximately 30 inches in the yard beyond the top riser. We do that so that so that people have a place to stand so they can open the gate. In addition, in the tertiary area, placing on the basement level a garage, and then on the first floor, a family room, and on the second floor, guest bedrooms. That we can see both in plan and elevation on the following plans. We are referencing various guidelines that you can read on our application.
I've got a hard copy if you want it.
Yeah, it's easier for me to read the hard copy.
Here, let me switch it over here so everybody can see what's going on. Basically, under this house.
You want me to read all that stuff?
Yeah.
Inside the house on that side, really?
It was. This is where it would be.
Call your attention to item number 2, you can read the guidelines that we're referencing.
This is that side right there. And that's the garage.
And as you can see, this doesn't have all the drawings.
I only have the one stuff.
It's missing the grade level. Missing the range. Let's put that back up. There you go. You can see the garage. Is it going to show if I point at it? No, it's not going to show. With the retaining walls to the north of the garage forming those curves. Retaining walls at that point will be roughly 5.5 feet tall. Yeah, to the next one.
That's the cycle.
I see.
Good.
And you can see the basic massing of the addition adjacent the existing structure. The original house, it's virtually impossible for me to mark where it is. It's all of the area to the left of the new addition, and there's a dashed line, roughly in line with some columns that we're showing. It shows the end of the original house. And then you can see as well the top floor for the guest bedroom, as well as some interior renovations. Let's move on. That's the roof. Yeah. You can we pull this in? Yeah, a little tighter. No, other way. Yeah, I'll see the whole thing. There you go. At the top of the drawing is the addition that has the basement level garage, first floor family room, second floor guest bedroom. The original structure is off to the lower left. Then there's a flat roof addition portion, part of which was an addition back in the early 90s and part of which would be a new addition as well. And let's move on. That's fine. Okay. The portion on the left-hand side is the addition. The portion that has the higher roof is the original. So you can see that our addition by roof volume is subordinate to the main structure, as well as cubicle volume. Let's go down. In a like manner, the portion on the right in this drawing is the addition, and again, you can see how much smaller it is than the original. Right. You can see in this front of the house as it faces East Front Street. One thing, when you go back to the other drawing, that first one, you can see that, go back to the photo. Yeah, front photo. Keep going, there. You can see that the brick on the brickwork is a yellow brick. Now, move on. And as we go around the house, you'll see that other brick is red brick. So we've got multiple brick colors on here. This is the side that's facing north. It's the side that the addition would be placed on. And this is looking from the northeast, toward the northeast corner of the structure. You can see part of the terrace that we would be taking down. That was added in the early 90s. In a like manner, you can see the terrace that would be removed and replaced. This is on the south side, facing the Gull Harbor House. Another side view from the south. Is that all?
That's all of them. Let's just see what others say.
Okay. Yes.
If there's nothing further you want to add right now, we can.
At present, I prefer to make any further statements based on questions.
Gotcha. Is there anyone who received notice about this application that would like to speak either for or against it? Okay. Is there anyone who may not have received notice but feels they can justify that they have valid information about the application who would like to speak either for or against it? Okay, very well. Morgan, do you have staff findings and recommendations for the commission?
I do. Prior to going into this, is the commission willing to accept the new evidence that was provided by the State Historic Preservation Office that was waiting for you when you arrived today? I just need a motion to accept it into new evidence.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's approved.
Thank you. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Development patterns 211, landscaping 245, accessory structures 261 and 262, design principles 311, additions 331, 332, 333, foundations 411, 414, windows, doors, and openings 431, 432, 433, and roofs 451. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the proposed project is located within primary, secondary, and tertiary areas of visual concern. According to the letter received from the State Historic Preservation Office and from staff's own observations, attached garages are not appropriate in the historic district as stated on page 27 of the guidelines. The addition is not subservient to the primary structure. The proposed project is incongruous with the guidelines, and staff recommends the commission deny the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines and a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office.
All right, thank you. Before we move forward, commissioners, are there any conflict of interest issues with this application for anyone? All right, does anyone have any issues with the completeness of the application? All right, very well. Just to refresh ourselves, I believe we saw this first at design review in February, and some initial advice was given back to the applicant, and most of it had to do with the what we determined to be an attached garage. And I know the applicant went back with that advice. We saw it again the next month, pretty much in the form we see now. It was not able to be heard last month because we didn't get the letter from State Historic Preservation Office in time for the hearing, And the reason that's required is because the application includes a request to elevate a historic structure, and our newly implemented policy from the hurricane is to request SHPO assistance and advice on every historic building contributing structure that's requested to be elevated. So that's where we've been. That's why we're finally here now. We did just accept the letter from SHPO as evidence. I know you've all just read it. Is there anything based on that, based on what we've seen, what you all see in the application, anyone want to bring up for discussion?
Well, it still has an attached garage.
Correct.
So, I mean, that right there makes, in my opinion, based on the guidelines, makes the COA really a moot point.
We take exception to that because we feel it's a misreading of the guidelines.
It's not a misreading, it's in black and white. I mean, it states attached garages, it states attached garages are not appropriate in the historical district. That's what's written. That's what's in the guidelines that has been approved.
It's a commentary, it is not a listed guideline.
And we use commentary to shape our decisions quite often, because the commentary in each chapter does include statements like that are designed to give guidance, even though they're not separated in a specific listed numbered guideline.
The other issue that we take is that this is in no way as far as the condition is concerned in the primary area is concerned.
The mic's not gonna hear you, the camera's not gonna hear you unless you go to the mic, sorry.
Okay, the other issue that we take exception to is that the addition is not in the primary area of visual concern.
And I did see that in the letter we received from SHPO, and I think that's a fair point to argue. I likely myself would have seen that as in the secondary because it is on the side of the structure and
As
not
diagrammed.
all that close to the front wall.
As diagrammed in the
Yes.
guidelines. As diagrammed in the guidelines.
Correct, and I think that's a fair point for consideration.
So page 2 of the letter that we got, under additions, the fourth dot talks about garage bays at the foundation level, not congruous with the special character of New Bern Local Historic District, and the proposed location of the garage doors will be clearly visible from the primary ABC.
Yeah, they're wrong.
The first part of it's not wrong. That, and I know that we go round and round every time that you have come, but, and I know that's not your interpretation of our guidelines, but it is our interpretation of our guidelines, that you cannot have an attached garage. Even though you have said in the past, well, it's got a building over it, you yourself call it a garage and it cannot be attached to the house. And this point is being made here as well.
Well, then we'll have to start tearing down garages that are attached to houses.
Well, that is a whole different ballgame. We're talking about your proposal right here. We're not talking about somebody else's stuff.
Our proposal had, when you stand on our terrace, you'll be able to see at least 2 attached garages from our terrace.
However, that's not what we're talking about here.
No, it's not what we're talking about, but it is a fact that it has been done. One of them has been done since the historic district was established. The other one was done prior to the establishment.
And if I stand in my house, I can see my garage and it's not attached. So,
We have an attached carport.
but we're talking about garages, right? My garage is not attached.
So let me ask you this.
So
If
you
we were
might
to
see
take
some
the-
different things, but
If we
that
were
is,
to take the door off of it, could we build it?
no,
Why?
because you're going, Because you're gonna put, you yourself call it a garage. You're gonna put
But
cars
if
in
we
there.
take the
I'll tell
doors
you
off
why.
of it, it'd
I'll
be a
tell you why.
carport.
Because a carport does not have walls. It has one front wall, but the side wall, most of the time, the side walls are open. Therefore, it's more like a breezeway that you park under and not a structure. A garage has 3 walls, 3 solid walls, and a front door that you park in, and that door closes.
And if we were to take the door off, what would you call it?
A garage, because it still has the 3.
It just took away one of your determining factors.
But the other 3 are still there.
Doesn't make any difference. You've taken away one of the determining factors.
But it
You know, I
doesn't.
said this at the design review. You're trying to split hairs. It's in black and white. That's the only thing I go by is what's in black and white. That's how I make my decisions.
Okay, I have a question. If this space on the ground level was being used for something, anything else, Tiki Bar, grandma cottage, dog run, whatever it might be, would it therefore be okay?
We
Well-
don't get into the use.
Well, if
Right,
you look at, if you
but all right,
look,
that's my question. We don't get into the use, but we care about where they park their cars. And so why is parking your car, equivalent to raping a puppy, but having a tiki bar okay?
because the guidelines say you
Right,
cannot
right,
have
but
a
apart from
detached
the
garage.
guidelines, but if we don't get into use, then we're at cross purposes within ourselves. If we don't care about the use of a property, the use of the room, what we do inside a house, any of that stuff, then why is it only where you park the car that makes people die 1,000 deaths?
Because it's part of the guidelines. And
But
whether
I'm
you
saying
want,
the
whether you
guidelines
want to
are
argue
internally
about
inconsistent.
use or not, that's what the guidelines say. If you're gonna have a garage, it has to be separate from the house. I know you don't, you maybe want to get away from that, but that is what the
Well,
guidelines say.
no, I am just looking at what we're saying. If we're saying we don't care what happens in that space, apart from the fact that we're all gonna, keel over and die if they put their cars in it, then why does it matter so much that they put their cars there? And really, if you wanted to get all hot and bothered about what's historically accurate, maybe we should have a horse and buggy tied outside, because cars are the last thing you would see in a historic setting because they weren't there. So I'm just curious. I mean, would we care if they were putting, Granny down there, or, their golden retrievers or whatever it was? Would we care under those circumstances? About the space and the way it looks? Period. Nothing else.
I think your argument is well-founded. However, we have an issue, and the issue is that while we have the prerogative to meet at some point in time and discuss changes to the guidelines, we operate at this point in time given the current guidelines. And the current guidelines say an attached garage is a no-no. I mean, I take issue with a lot of the things that are in this letter from the Preservation Commission. I don't
But
think this
I'm
edition supports-
I'm only concerned about our own internal
Well, but that requires
consistency.
changing the guidelines.
Right, but I'm much more concerned about our internal consistency right now at this moment. And it sounds like he is offering some compromises here, which is A, removing the doors if, that's a big deal, and B, perhaps removing a portion of the exterior wall if that turns it into a carport. And if that's the case, does that make it more consistent with our guidelines? Or is it that, we're just all exercise about where these people put their cars, no matter what?
Well, we are voting on the application as it was supplied to us also.
Yeah.
And,
Right,
and
so-
in the application, it stated that it was a garage, not that it was a family room, not that it was a storage building, that it was a garage.
Right.
And according to the guidelines as they are written today, it states no attached garage, period. It didn't say if they took the doors off, It didn't say if they were parking,
All right, well,
whatever.
so say he's willing to come back another month, you know, and I'm not speaking for him, this is pure conjecture on my part, but I just want to see if what we're stuck on is simply about where they put their cars, and if every other element of this application were consistent, and they said, you know, from now on, you know, we're renting this out as an Airbnb because it's at ground level, it'll have its own entrance, would we be good with that?
No.
I would
Because
ju-
the application says
No, I'm
it's
just
an
saying
attached
it.
garage.
No,
And
I'm
until
saying
that's
if-
changed,
I'm saying if it
he's
were
got,
not
he's
garage.
got to deal with
Addition.
he's got to deal with two issues with that building. One is that he calls it an attached garage, and he's got to deal with the second issue that's made in this letter, in that the size of this addition to the size of the house.
Okay, well, but
So
I'm
he's got
just.
to deal with both of those issues.
Okay, but I'm only talking about the design as it's presented right now and us being stuck about the garage. So if what they were using that exact same space for was something else, would it make a difference?
Well, he'd have to present what it would be.
Okay, but no, but
He'd have to
We
present
gave
that.
him, we gave him an option. This is not the first time we've heard this.
I understand that.
We gave
I
him the
was-
option to keep the garage, but it could not be attached. Just don't attach it. Make a breezeway, whatever you want to do, but just don't attach it.
Point of order, can we have a discussion that all of us are included in rather than this two-way?
What do you mean, all of us?
Well, I'd like to say something.
Well, speak up.
These are guidelines, and the fact that it was called a garage, the reality is it's a very large structure which has got living space in it and happens to have a place under it to park some cars. He could have called it any number of things, but I don't think we ought to get hung up on the fact that he used the word garage. It's a major addition to that house. That's what we ought to be concerned with.
Well, I think that it's not necessarily that the word garage was used to describe it, it's that it actually describes it best. That's what it is.
I don't think it describes it best at all. I think it's a major living addition space to that house.
Well, that's another part of it.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. It's 2/3 of it.
And the question is, and
See,
you
that's
know,
what
this is
makes
all
it
good
an
debate.
addition as opposed to an accessory use.
Yeah, it's an
Like,
addition to
each
the
of
house.
us are
It's not a
going to
garage.
have to make our own decision on this when it finally comes up for
Yeah.
a motion. Are there other aspects,
Could,
either from our own observations or from the letter, that anyone would like to discuss?
what would be the preferred construction material for the wall, the cyclopean wall? Why is there an objection to that? What would we like it to be?
The material that we're proposing is marl, which is what is there.
Marl, which is the existing.
Right.
But the letter points out that the existing is small pieces of marl, and the proposal is for blocks of marl.
Okay. And is that in fact the
Actually,
difference?
cyclopean means that it's not dressed.
That it's not what?
Dressed. It hasn't had chisels taken to it and squared up. It means that it's chunks of marl that are placed.
And is it going to be consistent with the existing wall?
It's basically what the existing wall is.
Except for the size of
I think
Except for
that's
the
the one thing
size.
the letter was pointing out, was the difference in size.
Yes.
Very likely.
And does it have to be a difference in size?
Well, by virtue of the fact that it's going to go roughly 5.5 to 6 feet tall,
Yeah.
as opposed to roughly 18 inches where it is today.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that the stones are going to be any larger. It just means that the wall itself is going to be taller.
So you're going to use the same type of material that's there?
For the wall. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not going to, because in this letter, it talks about the kind of masonry that you're talking about denotes the use of massive stone blocks laid
She
without
doesn't know
mortar.
what she's talking about.
But this is what the letter says, and
I
this
can't
is,
help what the letter
It
says.
sounds like there's a misinterpretation of what's actually proposed.
okay, well, I'm just going by what the letter says.
I mean,
because
the
that's what
term
we have in front of us.
cyclopean refers to, essentially irregular and oversized, what we would normally consider oversized blocks to build a wall from. The applicant's telling us that's not the case, it's just gonna be taller.
It's going to be taller. It's going to be made of irregular sized pieces of marl. Like I said, it's not gonna be dressed stone.
Well, perhaps we should go through each item on this letter.
I think that's good.
Let's go through each item that has been presented to us, item by item, and then we can make a note of what is going to be different or the same related to each of these items.
All right, so the first item addressed is the retaining wall. First bullet simply describes what they believe is proposed. The second bullet, well, does more of that, describing it as massive stone blocks laid without mortar. What we've heard from the applicant is that they will be essentially the same size blocks, but the wall will be taller,
They're not blocks,
or, well,
Stones.
they're
Chunks.
stones.
elements.
Yeah. And they will be put together with mortar, because you can't hold it together without it. You'll have a concrete block back up where it becomes a true retaining wall.
Which will remain unseen, and it's there for structural purposes.
Right.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's some misunderstanding on the part of Ms. Bartos on what the application is really proposing.
Our owner would like to make a comment if possible.
Certainly.
In listening, I think it's not quite clear what Charles is proposing as the moral wall around our house. As of right now, you see the picture of the front of the house, we have a moral wall that's about 6 inches above the sidewalk and a single large gate, which we would like to keep just as it is. But since we're raising the house 3.5 feet, we would like to raise the yard about 1.5 feet from what it is now and slope it up to the house, so it doesn't give the impression that the house is massive and sitting above the yard. It'll look much like the other houses downtown, including the one across the street, that has about a 3-foot rise before you get to the house and go up the steps. The front of the house, the moral wall, will be about 15 inches, 22 inches. Because our lot slopes to the river, the wall in the back of the house, the retaining wall, will be about 5.5 feet. The wall going down Chain Street, where we drive to park, will start at 22 inches, and when it gets to the back of the house, be about 5.5 feet. But it's not a 5.5-foot wall you see from the primary ABC. And the wall will be as identical as we can make, a moral wall with concrete to hold it around the house. It goes all the way down to the river.
And just to clarify, their driveway is what used to be Chain Street.
So can you show us a picture of what you're talking about and where it's going to be? Can you bring up a picture?
Morgan?
The other thing is, the reason we would like a place to park our cars is because our garage, 25 years, was washed away
Right?
from the storm, so we no longer have a garage or a place to park our cars. And I don't want to build a garage back and have it washed away again. I don't want my house flooded again. I can't live there if this happens again. I haven't been able to live in my downstairs for 7 months.
And we appreciate that point, but we have a guideline that says that you can't attach your garage to your house. So as we talked about, yeah, but it is a garage. I mean, you call it that. I mean, you can go round and round with words, but we appreciate that. Thank you. So where's the wall now that you're talking about?
The wall that we're talking about is the squiggles, for lack of a better term.
The what?
The squiggles, for lack of a better term, that goes from the front, from the right-hand side, back to what you see as the garage door. I have to use the term because that's what it is. I can't point to it.
Understood.
David, if you need to, point it out to them.
And I do have a printed copy here if anyone's unclear on what we're talking about. It's essentially the black wedge we're looking at right there.
Yeah, Morgan's pointing to it on the screen right now. That area right there. That's the wall.
And my understanding from the application is how you're making this 3'6" elevation is half in the wall.
Half in
and
the
then
wall,
half
half
with
in the
grading
grade.
going up.
That's correct.
So essentially, the house's relationship to the ground will look essentially the same as it does now to the line of earth where it hits the foundation.
That's right. And then again, we would rebuild the steps and the foundation walls underneath the front porch out of the same type of brick that's there now, as best we can find.
And it's only at the rear of the house, and because the land slopes as you go towards the water, where you will see a significant difference in
That's right.
the height of the foundation.
That's right. And which gives us the opportunity then to place this room underneath the other two spaces.
I think that's understood.
The next point covers the effect of that, I guess, that wall and the elevation on runoff to the neighboring property. How do you feel about
It
that?
keeps the water from running to the other properties.
Well, I want to comment on that, just at the level that I've had a similar problem, and I have touched base with every department in the city, and there is no ordinance that says you can't have your runoff go to your neighbor's property. So it's a moot point, and it wouldn't come under our jurisdiction anyhow.
We're gonna take it to a city storm drain, which is in the middle of what used to be Change Street.
All right.
Okay,
next.
so what about number 4 on the front page? Well, it says, based on the plans we received, it appears the height of the proposed retaining wall will dramatically increase as it moves east of the property, resulting in a feature that is highly visible from multiple elevations. The height increase may detract from the property rather than complement it. So they're talking about is this wall increases as it goes down the side of your property, right? You're talking about that wall right there.
That's right. And the actual height of the wall, the top of the wall is level. It's the street that's going down. We're not going up.
Yeah, but you're still going to increase because you said it's going to be 5 foot tall, right?
Yeah, at that end.
Well, and the top remains at the same elevation as it moves back.
That's right.
But
It's the
it
same
becomes
elevation.
taller essentially only because the ground is sloping away.
Right, so it's going to be taller.
Yeah,
Right.
And the tertiary remains the same.
right.
And actually, I would argue that function of the wall, especially as it relates to the true primary elevation, that's a positive thing because it's a means
It's
to
hiding part of the elevation.
visually decrease the effect of the elevation. Having it get taller as it goes back is simply a condition that, really can't be helped if you implement it.
It's basic geometry. Okay.
And as Joe has mentioned, the water runoff issue is not a consideration for us. The next items on there refer to the addition. The second bullet actually starts to get into it. Ms. Bartos says that the size and scale of the proposed addition do not appear to be subordinate to the main block of the house, and cites the guideline in which we state that.
I think to comment on that, we would have to have a definition of what the author of this letter means by subordinate. When I look at the drawing and when I look at what would be, I don't see that addition as being anything other than subordinate to the main house. It's smaller, it's lower, so what else
It's set
constitutes
to the back.
subordinate? And it's toward the back. So it's secondary and tertiary, and yes, it's a big addition, but I don't see a guideline that says only X percentage of square foot could be added to the size of the house.
Well, when you look at that picture, if you look at it this way, it looks like the windows are on the same line and the roof is on the same line.
Right.
Unless you have this drawn in proportionally.
It's correct.
So when you say it's not the same size as the house, it is as tall as
It's
the
as-
house itself.
The cornice line is the same height. The windows
So
are the same height.
it is the same height as the house.
That's right.
The roof, you are right that the roof is not as tall, you did
The
say
roof is
that.
not as tall. And
So
we
to
cut-
me, that's not subordinate, when it's at the same level of the house.
Well, that's
Well,
why I
the,
said we-
the,
we'll
the
need to
footprint,
define it.
the footprint of the addition is much smaller.
It's much
And even though it shares the same cornice line, it shares the same roof pitch. Because it's much smaller and it shares that same roof pitch, it naturally is gonna be lower.
What's gonna be lower?
The
rooftop.
The rooftop.
Oh,
will be
yeah, I
lower
said
than
that,
the original.
Certainly. The roof is not as tall, but when you look at the building in this perspective, it's the same height.
It is the same height,
Right.
but I'm not sure that that's the only criteria for subordinate. It uses all the same proportions in terms of its fenestration and its overall form. And its massing is smaller than the main house. We're not adding the same amount and then arguing that it's subordinate.
Well, this
I don't think that's necessarily the issue with the proposed addition.
Well, the second bullet talks about, likewise, the cornice and eave line of the addition should be lower, subordinate to the cornice and eave line of the main house, of the main block of the house, right? Which is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's where I take issue. Because she's just creating a water problem.
Well, but how can you say that when the cornice, and you agree that all of that is the same?
Well,
What I'm saying is that she's wrong in her
Don't-
statement.
Don't you walk between the levels from the original
You
house?
walk
and
from one,
0.29?
that's right. The
They have
floors
to
are
be
at the same height.
I was gonna say,
So if we don't have the roof at the same height, we have potential problems geometrically.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the roof.
Well, that's what the cornice is attached to.
Well, I understand that, but I'll just say, I'm talking about what I've already said, is the windows are at the same line, the bottom of the roofs are at the same line.
It
What-
has to be.
Doesn't
Dr.
have to
Cox, the windows have to
No.
be at the same line because the floors need to be even in order, so you don't fall. I mean, because the additions are part of existing rooms, you can't have to step from level to level, which would therefore have you put windows at a different line, but otherwise the windows have to be at the same line because the floors need to be even.
I just don't see how the guidelines that were cited in this letter saying that there's something wrong with what appears on the screen. And again, in looking at other properties which I have that put large additions on the back of their house or on in the secondary area of visual concern, the cornice lines always match, which is part of what you want to do to maintain the integrity of the entire building. When you start, otherwise you're saying, well, you can't put anything more than a one-story addition on the house.
Agreed.
I agree with that. I don't see anything in our
Yeah, I don't-
guidelines that says the cornice line can't be the same.
Morgan?
May I ask two questions?
Certainly.
First question, there is not a scale on this elevation, correct?
It was drawn at 8th scale.
Okay. If I'm looking correctly to the left here, this is the left porch, that's the rear porch facing the river. Okay. Has the porch been modified from that original curvature?
Yes,
Okay.
that has all been taken off,
Okay,
and a new porch has been designed.
okay. And this is just a question that I have for the board to consider. Under bullet 1, 2, 3, it mentions significant architectural features. And you notice with this home that curvature shape is predominant. You have to ask yourself, is that a significant architectural feature to the home?
It's a non-contributing piece, isn't it? Didn't you say it was built
It
in
was built in the
It was
90s,
built in the
1990?
So,
Something.
just throwing it out there.
so it falls under your non-contributing statements.
Thank you.
The next bullet point talks about loss of existing fenestration by the attachment. Result in the loss of one entire bay of fenestration on the north elevation would be visible from two primary AVCs. I would take exception to calling that a second primary AVC. That's not how we diagram things, that's not how we evaluate other applications. I mean, what I would take from that is that, yeah, based on the wide driveway, we'll be able to see some of it, but I don't think that makes it a primary.
It's not a through street.
No, and we do interpret that, corner lots do have two primaries because, of that very nature.
But it's not a corner lot anymore.
Correct, and that's why I would take exception to that interpretation. The loss of an entire bay of fenestration, the guideline she cites, essentially says avoid the concealment or loss of significant architectural features. When historic structures are added to, when you build an addition, it connects somewhere, and almost always some original fabric is lost due to that connection. I think if this addition were, fully in line with that entire side elevation, and we lost that entire thing, including the Palladian window in the center, then I think we might be looking at an unnecessary loss of significant architectural features.
And to move the addition back further, so like corner board goes to corner board, means it's no longer really attached to the house.
You've got to have some overlap in order to move
You've got to
through.
have some overlap in order to move from one part to the other.
Well, we can figure that out.
I have a question.
Well,
The fenestration or the windows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we've talked about this, and we have two old windows on the first floor and two on the second floor, and we would like to plan to save them and move them to the addition so that we do not lose the original windows and make sure everything matches.
Thank
So
you.
we're not taking them out, but we are moving them to the addition.
All right, thank you.
So are you saying when you attach this to the main house, you're gonna lose two windows? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a first
You're
floor
gonna cover
window
up
and a
two
second
windows?
floor
The
window.
addition covers up the windows, we're moving the windows to the addition, so they will still use them and not lose them. The original windows to the house, the 1910.
Next bullet point is the one we started. Discussion on garage bays at foundation level are not congruous with the special character of the New Bern Local Historic District. That's stating it a little differently. We've been talking about whether or not it's an attached garage. This sort of piggybacks on that and says that garage bays at the foundation level are simply not congruous with the special character of New Bern. Goes on to say that the garage doors will be clearly visible from the primary ADC and the public right-of-way. Well, anything that's on pretty much the side of anyone's house from some point while passing by, you're able to see it. I think that's unavoidable. Let's see, next bullet point. It says additions should not compromise the integrity of the property or its site.
Let me slow you down. The last sentence in that bullet point for garage bays say, thus we recommend placing the garage bays at the east or rear elevation where they will not be as visible from the street, which means they're saying that the placement of the garage is congruous with the guidelines, that the only issue that they're really taking is where the garage doors are.
Did you
Not the
consider
garage-
putting them in the
Not
back?
the garage.
But then they don't have a rear terrace.
I'm not, that's another issue, but just, this now creates a conflict in our earlier discussion. I'm not arguing that our guidelines do not suggest that attached garages are not appropriate. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm merely saying that this letter suggests that an attached garage could be appropriate depending on where the garage doors are.
I don't think it says that, but I hear what you're saying.
I can see that interpretation based on
Yeah.
the way it's written.
But I don't think that's what they're saying, but okay.
Last bullet point under the addition heading talks about it being not appropriate to introduce features and details that would create a false sense of historic development. Specifically, she's talking about the rooftop balustrade currently proposed on the addition. she's suggesting it not be included in order to further differentiate the addition from the main block of the house.
The problem with that is that the balustrade that's on the main block of the house was put on in the 90s. It's not an original feature.
Well, that's something for all of us to consider. Regarding the elevation, first bullet point there indicates that a FEMA elevation certificate was not included. We're not requiring that for other applications for elevation. We're looking for SHPO's guidelines based on the specific character of any particular property and the specific amount that an applicant might be asking to elevate the home. I think they've taken some pretty positive steps in order to hide that from the primary ADC using the marl wall halfway, the rest of it as graded, front yard. Talks about, next bullet point, historic masonry and foundation appears to be comprised of two types and colors of bricks. Proposed foundation bricks should match the historic bricks in size, color, texture, and bond pattern. Unless I've misunderstood you, the applicant said that there are currently two different
colors
of bricks on the home right now. The new bricks will match one of them.
Match the red ones.
Yeah. Next bullet point, it appears information about the proposed flood vents for the foundation was not included in the COA. Recommend the HPC request this information from the owner to ensure the vents will satisfy the guidelines.
Yeah, we haven't said anything about flood vents at all.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just going to say. On the two elevations we have, I don't see any indication, unless it was written somewhere that you're proposing them, and they're not shown, then there's no conflict. If you're not proposing any, there's none of them for us to evaluate.
At the present time, we're not proposing any. If we decide we want to, we'll come back.
Last bullet point, proposed elevation and reconfiguration of the porch on the south elevation appears to eliminate the historic stairs that face the street. South elevation would be the right side from the street, correct?
Right.
Yeah, it's the side that faces Gull Harbor is the south side.
So what stairs are we referring to then?
Is that the front porch it's referring to?
No, side of the house. The front porch faces north.
This photo is the elevation, south elevation, correct?
Yes.
What stairs are we talking about then? Historic stairs that face the
There
street?
was a set of stairs that faced East Front Street that apparently was destroyed by the storm.
Yes, they're gone now. And we plan to replace them.
Okay.
You
Well, and
can't
there's
see it in that
nothing,
picture, they
Yeah,
face
they-
East Front
it's,
Street.
they face this. Thank you.
Yeah.
and no part of what's proposed is going to take the place of where they were.
Right.
Okay, that sounds like a misunderstanding then of what's being proposed. Okay. Any other observations anyone would like to make based on your own reading of the guidelines and your own understanding of the application? There is one further that I would like to make, is something I've been considering and thinking about, and it's up to each of us to determine whether or not this is important to each one of us at all. The garage that was washed away actually had its own historic district listing, unlike most of the accessory structures we have in the district. It actually had its own specific historic district listing. I believe it was 1924 and the house was 1910.
That's about right.
Sounds about right.
That
doesn't it?
sounds about right.
Yeah, I had it printed here, but there isn't much more information on it than that. It was a detached accessory structure at the time it was destroyed. It was considered significant enough, which is significant because the people who wrote the district listings almost for just about every other accessory structure in the district did not give it its own listing. They did with this one. Its placement as an accessory structure was definitely congruous. Now, I know that there was no planning to destroy this thing. Obviously, what happened, happened. However, I think it's important to consider that by its very nature, that be the appropriate place for a garage element to be reintroduced to the property. Even more so than other properties where the accessory structure was not deemed significant enough to offer its own historic district listing. And in fact, that was one of the first things we said at the very first design review, is that would be considered completely appropriate, and we wouldn't be having the attached garage discussion. The guideline sentence that we're using that states that attached garages are not appropriate in the historic districts actually occurs in the section on accessory structures. And I think that actually points to the fact that since it states what it does, we don't even expect to address garages in additions. The applicant's and the owner's point of view is that this is only an addition. It happens to include a garage. That may be a difference of opinion that some of us have. I feel strongly that if it were proposed as a separate structure, we would have zero problem with it. In almost any character that might have been proposed. But I think its placement inside the addition, essentially within the confines of the addition, is what's giving us a heartburn about interpreting it as an attached garage. Any other discussion, or would anyone care to make a motion? Or is there anything further you'd like to rebut before
I think we've already rebutted
Okay.
enough.
I would make a motion. I move that we find the application for certificate appropriateness for 516 East Front Street to be not incongruous with Newburn's ordinance section 15-411 to 15-429 in Newburn's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Development patterns 2.1.1, landscaping 2.4.5, accessory structures 2.6.1, 2.6.2, design principles 3.1.1, additions 3.3.1, 3.3.2, 3.3.3, foundations 4.1.1, 4.1.4, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1, 4.3.2, 4.3.3, roofs 4.5.1. Statement of reasons: proposed project is within the primary, secondary, and tertiary areas. The attached addition is appropriate to historic district as stated on page 2.7 of the guidelines, and the addition is subservient to the primary structure, and the proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
We have a
I'll
motion,
second.
and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Yes.
Friendly amendment, it has to be findings of fact, not statements of reason. So we'll have to amend that motion to state findings of fact.
I would amend it to that.
And do you want to have a roll call vote?
Yes, likely this will be somewhat of a split decision, so we probably ought to do that just so we get them counted correctly. So you accept the amendment of the language, and as the one who seconded, you also do. Okay.
I do.
All right, well, let's call for a roll call vote then.
All right.
And
Everyone-
before we do, let's make sure everyone understands that the motion and the second are to approve the application.
Cool, okay. Roll call vote, starting with Ellen Sheridan.
I approve the application.
Okay. Mr. Fiskey?
Yes. Approved.
Okay. Mr. Klotz?
I vote against.
I'm sorry, sir?
Against.
Against, thank you. Mr. Griffith?
Against?
Dr. Cox?
Against?
Mr. Woods?
Against?
Mr. Brady?
For.
All right, the motion is 4-3. The motion does not pass.
So as a point of procedure, Morgan, do we now have to, is it incumbent upon us to make a motion in the opposite direction?
No, sir,
Okay.
just done. And there's no need to issue a motion for a COA at this point, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Very well.
All right.
From old business to new business.
Yes, sir. Okay. First up, under new business tonight, we have Miss Nancy Falcone. Thank you. We have Miss Nancy Falcone. This is 923 Pollock Street. This is a request to install a wooden 6-foot privacy fence and an accessory structure in this tertiary AVC. She's here this evening. I'll go ahead and pull up her application real quickly while I let her give you the quick rundown. She did add in those few things that you requested from her at design review. So. Okay, we'll have to continue her till next month. She did have a schedule conflict. So,
Okay.
all right.
Very well.
Okay, well, moving on to Mr. Lucas. 207 New Street. Mr. Lucas added those things that you asked for as well. This is a request to install a accessory structure in the tertiary ADC. This is a replacement of one that was again destroyed during the hurricane. And,
Good evening.
yeah, go ahead.
Appreciate this tedious task you guys, yikes,
Thank you.
perform.
All right. I've got everything Mr. Lucas submitted to you all. He provided the narrative that you requested to describe the materials. Excuse me. And you said we have a single door, and the roof will be the same raised seam, metal roof, no ridge cap.
Double door,
Double door. Okay.
Yeah.
Double door.
carriage doors. That's before. Yeah. That's it now.
And that's, this right here is your neighbor, and it was right here.
Yeah. That's the house behind us, the green. But my garage was right next to the blue garage. And I'm replacing same pads, same materials, a little bit nicer doors, whereas before they were just plain with the metal, short metal hinges. We're gonna put the carriage house black iron hinges on, make it a little prettier.
Larger strap hinges.
Yes, sir. And it's same, you know, we're using wood, tin, and we understand the objections to the ridge vents and the rolled, you know, so we're gonna do it like it was, basically.
And that's gonna be the pitch of the roof.
Yeah, that's right over on Craven and, not Johnson, but one over Queen, or not Queen. Anyway, that's real nearby and it's beautiful, it's historic, so we're gonna do the pitch a little bit higher than we had before. That's just to show the lap strake or whatever you call the siding. It's wood. hardy plank.
Hardy plank, okay.
Smooth surface, not the one with the false grain.
I'm sorry.
For a hardy board, we require the smooth surface
Oh, absolutely,
rather
yes,
than
sir.
the one with the false grain.
I do too.
Okay. And this was an example of the doors?
Yeah,
With windows or no windows?
with windows.
With windows.
Is that what the doors are gonna look like?
Yes, ma'am. As close as, you know, I haven't found them, but that's what we're looking for.
207, oh, 207.
And these are just an additional example of
Yeah,
those.
that's not necessary. Those
That's
are,
the hinges though.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
No window. And
8-foot side, 12-12 pitch, double doors, as we showed in the previous picture.
it's gonna go in the
And
window, right?
no other windows or doors on the remaining three sides.
Correct. And the front side you see there is what's facing the street. The long side is in my backyard, which can't be seen by anybody, really.
And the other long side faces George Oliver's garage.
Yes, like just off of it, yeah. That shows a shingles. We're actually doing the 10, so. On the roof.
It's just an interior.
Yeah, basically it's just 12 by, yeah.
And this was just the pin number and the surveys here.
Yeah, and it's just back in the corner, which you can't really see it, right there, yeah.
But he meets the setbacks, him and Brad discussed the setbacks, and he meets them.
And Matt, they all were fine with the setbacks.
And that was the narrative that you requested, that defines what he was asking for. And that's
All
it.
right, very well.
Thank you, Mark.
Commissioners, any conflicts of interest issues or issues with application completeness? All right. Is there anyone who has received notice that would like to speak either for or against this application? Anyone who may not have received notice but feels they have relevant information about this application would like to speak for or against it? Okay. Morgan, do you have staff findings and recommendations?
I do. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Accessory structures, 261, 263. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the proposed project is located within the tertiary ABC. The proposed materials and design are appropriate. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right. Questions, comments, discussions? If not, would anyone care to make a motion?
I would. I move that we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 207 New Street to be in not congruence with the New Bern Code of Ordinance Sections 15411 to 15429 and New Bern's Historical District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Accessory structures 2.6.1, 2.6.3. Findings of fact: the proposed project is located in the tertiary ABC. 2, that the proposed materials are appropriate, and 3, that the proposed project is not in congruence with the guidelines.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You have your COA, sir.
I'd like to thank the council, thank you, Morgan, and thank you, New Bern.
Okay, moving on to 1207 North Pasteur Street. This is a request to install porch railings and columns in the primary ABC, filling in of a window opening in the tertiary ABC and the installation of wooden windows, replacement wooden windows, and the secondary and tertiary ABC. Do note this is an after-the-fact COA, and Mr. Winbush is here this evening. So I'll pull it up for you, Joe. So you can just give them a rundown of what you're asking. And we'll just jump to the pictures. So okay with you guys, or would you like to go through the narrative?
Well, it depends on however the applicant would like to present to us.
What would you like to do? And go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, we're missing some rails on the property at Pollock 7. And so the proposal is to go back with the same type rails and just put them in. We're missing them on, I think, 3 sides. Well, actually, one side, they're all gone, and then they're missing some of the pickets on the other side. You can see we're missing the pickets there.
I'd say they're gone.
So proposal is to go back with the same kind of pickets, the same kind of design.
Are we good on this one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We'll go to back out of windows.
Yes, sir.
This is an area where the bathroom was, what the bathroom is. And so what happened is there was I think I've owned the property a little over 20 years, and the window was always covered up. The bathroom was, had some problems, so when I decided to take the window out because it was hidden behind the wall, and then the plan is to go back with, to refurbish the bathroom. All of the seals were pretty much, the joists were gone, so we're going to redo those, and we wanted to close in this window instead of putting close in where this window area was. The window was on the inside of the wall. It hadn't been there for quite some time, so we're asking permission to close that in, use the same kind of siding, and then just put insulation on the inside. Here we just want to repair those columns. Joint compound can go in where the big hole is. I've already filled that in. I haven't changed the wood at the bottom. I think I can just change that wood, lift it up, change the wood, and leave it like it is, and not replace the columns. That's the goal, is not to do that, unless I have to. I don't think so.
And these are going to be wooden windows.
Yeah, these are wood windows. I was not aware that they needed to be, the same initially. So eventually, I got the word, and what I tried to do is find someone who could refurbish it. I talked to Mr. Williams, and at the recommendation of the board, he's got flooded. He's saying maybe call him back in about 8 weeks or so. And so what I ended up doing is I purchased some wood windows from one of the local, Home Depot, based on what the Historical Society had in one of the other places. I got her to Swansburg, is what she said, to order the wood windows, based on what they had there. It doesn't have the separate plates like this one does, but it does have the thing down the center.
So are you saying that your application does not include repair of the windows? You're asking for a replacement?
Yes, sir. Replacement because, the only reason I'm asking for a replacement is because I don't know anybody who can do the woodwork. I can't do it, so to me, that would be the next, thing to do.
Around that can do that.
this was
No,
the
you can
quote
relate with somebody.
that,
Right, yeah, no, that's the other one,
that's the old one.
yeah,
Get there in discussion.
yeah, okay.
I attached at the end.
This was really none also where the windmill that was in the back area that was put in there about 10, 15 years ago. The windmill was broken. What I didn't show is the wall area that we're going to install it. But what happened was the roof leak, and so the wall pretty much got rotted out where the window was. And so we're replacing that wall. We already studded it up, have the OSB board on there. So, and the city's going to inspect that. And it's just a matter of getting a new wood window to go in that area. Same thing as the other one. And I think I have a picture of both of those.
That's the old one.
Yeah, that's the old one.
And this is the
That's the old one,
Anderson
that's
set.
the old one too.
This is the old one too? All right.
Yeah, she doesn't do it.
This is,
Yeah.
so this was gonna be the kitchen
Yeah,
window?
this is the proposed window. On the picture, you can't see the seam that goes down the center, but it's a wood window. The specification shows that, and it does, go down on the outside and then on the inside of it. But it's not 4 separate panes.
Is it a wood window with a clad exterior?
Sir?
Is it a wood window with a clad exterior?
Wood window with the wood on the inside and wood on the outside.
Double hung, equal side.
Yes, sir.
Does it?
Fine white painted.
I can't read the cut sheet from there. Does it confirm that, Morgan?
I'm reading. Exterior, exterior color, exterior, interior species is pine, interior finish color, I'm reading, the glass is a dual pane. Sorry, guys. I'm not seeing it. Sorry, guys.
I think that was one of the requirements, that it had to be wood on the outside.
Correct, yeah.
Yes,
I was
sir.
just trying to determine from the manufacturer's cut sheet if that's
Yes,
the
sir.
case. Were you able to see it?
I didn't see it, but there it is. That's the cut sheet for that window.
I ordered the window, but just had a specification for it, having an order permit.
Yeah, I don't see it.
No, I didn't see it on there either.
And I ask because I know they're getting more and more difficult to find with true wood exteriors. Most of the manufacturers are by nature now putting clad or PVC exteriors on even a wood window.
But this is not the one he ordered this one.
But not to hold you up,
Yeah, one of them.
please
I just-
continue.
Sir,
But not to hold you up, sir, please continue.
just continue?
Please continue with the application.
Oh, and I believe that's basically it, sir. That's all we wanted to do.
That's the one.
Most of this is just upkeep,
Okay,
maintenance.
all right, if you've got nothing further to add, is there anyone who received notice that would like to speak for or against the application? Anyone who may not have received notice but has relevant information and would like to speak for or against the application? Okay. Morgan, do you have staff findings and recommendations for us?
I will do it with trying not to choke. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. It promises accessibility and life safety. Sorry, 471. Windows, doors, and openings. I apologize, guys. Bronchitis. Windows, doors, and openings.
you want to hand it and let
Yeah,
someone
that
else
would
read
be
it?
good.
Yeah.
Struggling tonight.
If you've got it on paper, that's fine. Okay. Staff submits following historic district guidelines as appropriate to the application. Windows, doors, and openings 431, 432, 433. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 421, 422. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application. Staff's judgment are: 1, proposed project is located in the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. 2, proposed window replacement is inappropriate. 3, the proposed project is incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission deny the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines. Okay. Anything further to add before we
No, no, sir.
deliberate?
No, sir.
Okay. Just to start off the discussion, that's the same point of contention that I had with the application, is that the wood windows, at least the ones on the front side, exist. They can be repaired. The only reason that's given for replacement with new wood windows is the timeline for repair, which does not concern us. As we explained during design review, our guidelines are very clear about the great preference for repair of existing wood window fabric versus replacement, even with a wood window product that we might find appropriate in a situation where the original windows might not even be there or be too deteriorated to repair. It hasn't been demonstrated that they're too deteriorated to repair, even by the applicant, who has only stated that the timeline is off. That does not meet the standard, and therefore, it's my opinion that replacement with a new wood unit is inappropriate. The other parts of the application are replacement in kind of wooden railings, infill of an existing window that's been covered by plywood for 20 years, something like that, and the replacement of another window, which I believe is on the tertiary side. Sir, is that correct? It's in the absolute back of the house?
Yes, sir, that's the add-on portion where the kitchen is. There were no windows when I bought it about 20 years ago. And so I just installed that one that broke.
Okay. So when you say there were no windows, was there an opening that had been previously boarded up or something, and now you're going to propose to put a new window in it?
Actually, when I bought it, the whole side was open. There was nothing there, and so what I did is I put the 2x4s there and stuck that window in there some years ago. And so now, after putting the OSB board up, the only logical thing to do was to put the wood window in there, and I didn't have one of those, and that's why I was proposing to buy one of those. Unless I could get someone to make one, to meet your requirement.
Okay, so to better understand that is on the back side of the house. It's on a later addition,
Yes,
not
sir.
the original part of the house.
Yes, sir.
What we might consider to be an incongruent vinyl window is there now, and you're going to replace it with a wood one?
There's, the window that was there is broken, and yes, sir, it was, I think, metal,
Okay,
one of the old ones.
all right. I think I better understand that now. Does anyone have any questions or discussion on the application?
I have one on the windows on the front side of the house. You said that you couldn't find anybody to repair them, or you don't know anyone that took the repair them.
Well, I only, at talked to the board suggested Mr. Williams, and Mr. Williams was, the only one that I knew, that does that kind of work. So, based on what I, got from the board. There might be some other people that restore them, but I just don't know of anybody who does it. So, I was trying to get it, so that I could get the approval to go ahead and use the other windows. That's why I didn't pursue anybody else. But, whatever is required to meet your requirements is what I'll have to do.
Well, I can give you the name of somebody who works on old houses who could help you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I can give you the name of somebody.
That's good.
And also, I think if you check with the Historical Society, they may have a list of contractors. I'm not saying they do, but I think that they would, that's where I would start at, is with the Historical Society, to see if they have a list of contractors, because we're not in that guideline state. We would like you to use what was there and try to refurbish those.
And the only portion that needs to be replaced is just the bottom portion. The top is okay, but just the bottom portion. The sash.
Bottom rail of the lower sash.
Sure.
The bottom rail, the horizontal piece of the lower sash,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what we have an issue with are the two wooden windows that can be repaired. Can we approve the other parts of this application?
Yes. Yes, we can. And essentially, we could approve it as is with a condition accepting any part we determine is inappropriate. Any further discussion or comments?
There is a window guy in Greensboro named David Hoggard who has a business called Double Hung.
Okay.
The man can conjure windows out of space. He's very good.
I'll get, numbers and we'll do that.
All right, would anyone care to make a motion?
I will, Mr. Chairman. I move we find the application for 1207 North Pasteur Street for a certificate of appropriateness not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance Section 15-411 to 15-429 and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and finding of fact. Accessibility and life safety 4.7.1, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1, 4.3.2, and 4.3.3, walls, trims, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4.2.2. Findings of fact: the proposed project is located in the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Based on the condition that the wooden windows be repaired, not replaced.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Do we need to say something about the back window, or is it already in there that he's going to put a wooden window in the back window?
I think that's already in there.
It's my understanding that that is in there.
That is in
And
there? Okay.
If your condition needs further clarification to specify the two front windows, then we could do that perhaps and make that clear.
I think I feel more comfortable if we say that the two front windows, we want those, because they need to really be, try to save them as much as possible.
Yes.
Okay. Is that accepted?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Who seconded that?
I will. Who did?
I did.
Okay.
Okay, and you're okay with that amendment then? All right, any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well, it passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You have your COA with conditions, sir.
double hung?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Let me go hand this to him.
Certainly. All right, the next application is 710 Howard Street, correct?
It is. Quick point of order, I do need a motion to continue 923 Pollock Street because our applicant had to leave.
Okay, very well. Would
Sorry.
someone care to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, now we'll move on to 710 Howard Street.
Mr. Chair, I need to be excused from this application.
Okay, someone needs to move that second and we vote. Do we have a,
Second.
okay. All those in favor of excusing the commissioner based on a conflict of interest, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well.
All right, so we have 710 Howard Street. This is a request to install replacement double hung wooden windows in the primary ABC. And Mr. Smith is here tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Evening.
And
I'm going to allow Morgan to make this presentation unless she gets under distress, and then I'll try to take over.
I'll make it. I don't have people, I promise.
And I'll be able to answer any questions that you bring before me, I hope.
So this is 710 Howard Street. These are some photographs that I took when we visited the site that describes the visuals, what we are looking at here. We're all familiar with the Masonic Lodge. This is the first African-American Masonic Lodge.
North Carolina.
Yep. But that's not the original location, it was moved there.
Yes.
Okay. This was what was proposed the first time. This is some replacement 6x6s, wooden windows. And they are double hung. And they do have the grids. Buttons. This was one that was proposed at first, but I think we've established that one's not gonna work, because that's a 1-for-1, right?
Yes.
These were the grills that we talked about. You're gonna go with the standard 6x6.
Yes.
Which is right there. And, yep, there's the shadow bars. Moving along, there's some more of the cut sheet information, but they are wood double hung windows. I think that's a repeat. These are some photos of the windows that we took when we went inside, I don't know, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. These are not the original windows. It was established because these are holding on by a hook and a prayer and some nails and some screws. Half of them don't fit. We don't know where they came from. No, I didn't bet. No. These were likely replacements after the fire that was
2005, 6.
somewhere around there.
And it was basically to close the building up to keep the animals out. There are no seals, sashes, or any other work for windows, so as we try to renovate the building, we want to put windows in that are actually functional and windows that will look like the original building.
Okay.
And I didn't take photographs of every single window, but they're all more or less in a very similar condition where they do not function. They are screwed in just to keep, like he said, the animals out, to weatherize it. Some of them have gaps this big, some wider, some smaller. Someone really did try very hard to keep the appearance going with what they could find. but unfortunately, they're just not weatherproof. Let's see. This is one that is not even operable. So, and this is the main hall, I believe. This one you can see where the sash is, all that gap right there. And that's the end of the photos. I didn't take pictures of every single one, but they're all in the same condition.
Okay. Anything further to add?
We are in the process of trying to renovate and get the building back in a shape where it can at least withstand the weather, as well as make it comfortable for the membership as we meet. We would really like you to entertain getting these windows in. We're in the process now of starting work on the walls themselves, which is in light repairs. So we're not gonna. That's nothing that needs to be considered here, but the windows will.
Correct. All right. Any commissioners, any conflicts of interest or concerns about application completeness? Okay. Is there anyone who's received notice that would like to speak for or against the application? Anyone who may not have received notice but has relevant information and would like to speak for or against the application? Very well. Morgan, can you present staff findings and recommendations?
Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Windows, doors, and openings 431 and 433. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: the proposed project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. The proposed materials are appropriate. The existing windows are not original to the structure and appear to be in irreparable condition. And the proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
All right, thank you. To start the discussion, I'll say that we did make a site visit just a few days after our design review meeting. I think it was the Friday after that. Ellen and George, myself and Morgan were all able to make it. And just to describe what we found, these, as Morgan was saying, these are definitely not the original windows. These are sashes that have simply been tacked into the actual rough openings. What you can see in the jamb there, the dark material on that left jamb, is actually the original stud. It's a rough stud. So the original windows likely would have had jamb members with a hollow sash weight pocket. All of that material is gone. These were just tacked into place. So it quickly, in my mind, turned into something where repair of the window sashes is really not an issue here, because they don't even fit in the openings. The rest of the window, the jambs, the heads, the sills, aren't even there. Now, somebody did a very good job in finding the right size sashes to stick in the rough openings and make them appear like true double hung windows or have been there for a while. But it's actually not the case. And so I left the site visit for myself feeling like this would be an appropriate application for a new wood window product that matches the true divided light appearance, with grills inside out and in between the panes, and 6/6 look. But since none of the remainder of the what's required to make a full window is even there, it seemed to me to make sense to allow a new wood window application as a replacement window. The only snag that I found is when I looked into the ply gem window. This is a wood window. However, it is listed as having a low-maintenance cellular PVC sash and exterior component ready to accept acrylic latex paint. So it has a, cellular PVC. It has a sort of imitation, something other than wood cladding on the outside part. So that is something to consider as to whether or not the submitted product would be acceptable to us as proposed. This is a contributing structure. Our guidelines require that replacement elements be of the same materials that were available at the time of construction, which is what points to true wood windows. And like I mentioned before, they are getting more and more difficult to find. Most manufacturers are now putting some sort of acrylic or vinyl or metal cladding on the exteriors just for durability. I can pass that around if anyone's interested in looking at what's been submitted, so we can determine if we feel that's appropriate or another product should be pursued.
So are you going to be able to find a window that's going to fit into that space?
Well, they'll have to be custom made
Okay,
for the rough openings.
they're going to have to be made, right?
Well, I mean, likely. They may be able to find a stock window size that's within a half an inch each side of the rough opening, and in that case, they could shim them and it would look just fine. But that's,
You mean have it too wide and then shim it down?
well, I mean, the new window will come with the head sill and jambs all as one piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they stick that into the rough opening, if there's a gap of half or even maybe 3/4 of an inch on either side, that can easily be shimmed to fit, and then the trim on the outside covers the gap.
Because I'm thinking that probably every window in that place is somewhat different.
Very likely.
On my house, for instance, with my shutters, when they went to do the shutters, every set of windows was different. You can't take these shutters from this window and put in this window or they ain't gonna close. So I'm just thinking that, you got to go looking to find something to fit all these spaces.
Which may mean that they take dimensions of each rough opening, send them to their window rep, and see if they can find stock sizes that will work, or if some of them will have to be custom.
And so you're saying that it's going to be hard to find wood windows, all wood windows?
Well, I was looking this afternoon, and it appears that the Gerald Wen company makes true wood windows.
Mm-hmm.
And it does, they do offer them with pre-finished exterior treatments, but I think it's just a paint on actual wood.
I got them from my addition, they're just wood on the outside and inside.
Okay.
Okay, so they'd be a wood window.
Yeah, and I got them through Garrett's Evans, so.
Well, that's more evidence to me than that's what should be pursued rather than the PVC clad ones that are in the application.
So, can you scroll down, Morgan?
On that one?
What I'm looking at, what I have on my Dropbox is different from this.
Oh, that's not on your Dropbox. He just got that this afternoon, right?
Yeah, that's a brochure that I downloaded
Yeah,
for
that's just
the
a
model
brochure.
window that I read was in the application. Now, unless there's some conflicting information there and I've downloaded the wrong window, we can double check that.
This is a 400, and what I'm looking at, which is information we got from Morgan, is a 100 double hung natural wood sash and interior ready for staining to match any interior decor, also available with primed interior for painting. Exterior vacuum treated solid wood components resist damage from water and fungus. No mention here of any vinyl, or how does this
This is one of the
PVC?
first, this is one of the first examples that was provided. this is one of the first examples that was provided by the applicant. Maybe they changed their mind in the meantime.
Well,
Okay. Put that as a condition.
yeah, I think the way to move forward would be to craft the motion such that condition be that the final window selection be truly wood inside and out, no artificial claddings on either side. And we can determine that at some point afterwards. Does anyone have any other comments or discussion? All right, would someone like to craft a motion?
I will. I move that we find the application for 710 Howard Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 through 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.1 and 4.3.3. Findings of fact that the windows are to be put in a primary, secondary, tertiary ABC, that the existing windows were not original and actually do not operate as windows and therefore need to be replaced, that this application is not incongruous with the Historic District guidelines and the materials are appropriate to the Historic District guidelines, and the condition being that the windows finally installed be wood windows inside and out.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
We have that motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You have your COA with conditions, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your consideration.
All right. Can we have a motion to welcome James back?
Do we have to?
Yeah, because it was my day.
I move.
I got you.
Second.
We have the motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We're glad you're back.
Welcome back, officially.
All right. 600 Edgerton. This is an amendment to an existing COA. This is to include a redesign of the infill construction, primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. They're also requesting to build a dock with a boat lift. And Sarah knows what she's doing, so I get to sit down.
Good evening.
Aye.
You all have seen this project a few times, and this is a revision to what was approved several months ago. The owners have decided to make what was proposed a little bit smaller. We had the main house, and then we had an accessory structure. And what we've done is taken that accessory structure and put the main component of it next to the house, so that it's just not as big on the lot. We've also moved the house in the middle of the lot instead of so far up against Johnson Street. I've got some photos. Let me just orient everyone here first. This is the lot here. It's at the end of Johnson and Edgerton. It's an empty waterfront lot. And there's a private park, or a city park actually, right along the edge here. This is a view down there, a view of the existing water, and then the lot itself down here below. What was approved before is very close to what we've got now. It's just that these are the other structures along Edgerton. There are 4 other structures there, very similar in a way to what we were proposing. And let me go back here. So the main portion of what we are changing is we're adding, instead of having the accessory structure over here, we're putting the main portion of it here. So we're attaching that piece of it. And then the main portion of the house is relatively the same. We had to widen out the porch just a little bit and enclose this one space here where before it wrapped around so that you could get to the structure. So from Edgerton Street, this is the new elevation with the piece over here. And then we took the deck that was in between the accessory structure and the main house, and we've moved it out towards the river and away from the side of the house. And then that's the rear from the river and the side from their neighbor's house. They are also proposing a dock to go out into the Noose, and it's really best seen on that image there. It will be very much in line with the other docks that are along the Noose right there, and will come out straight from where we're proposing the deck to come out along that area. Go back to... And so, really the biggest changes are getting rid of that accessory structure, moving it onto the side of the house. And to me, it's set back far enough that it really is small and diminished. Adding that dock that wasn't there before and kind of moving the deck around to the other side. That's all I have.
All right, very well. Commissioners, any issues with conflict of interest or concerns on completeness? All right. Is there anyone who received notice that would like to speak for or against the application? Anyone who may not have received notice but has relevant information and would like to speak for or against the application? Okay. Morgan, will you provide staff findings and recommendations?
Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Development pattern 211 through 213, infill construction 341 through 344, foundations 411 through 414, walls, trim, and ornamentation 421, 424, windows, doors, and openings 433, 434, entrances 444 and 445, roofs 454, 456, decks and patios 462, and last, waterfront modifications 291, 292. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are the proposed project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary areas of visual concern. The proposed project is not in conflict with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you. We did see this in design review 2 weeks ago. I think overall the consensus was that reduction in the footprint and massing and overall volume was a positive thing. The overall character changes very little because it utilizes the same proportions on windows, roof forms, all of those things. We have very little to comment on as far as docks go, that they essentially be made of wood, that they be generally perpendicular and parallel to shore, and this one is both. There's no prohibition on the boat lift. Any other comments or concerns or questions for the applicant? If not, would anyone like to craft a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we find the application for certificate of purpose for 600 Edgerton Drive to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines, development pattern 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.1.3. Infill construction 3.4.1, 3.4.2, 3.4.3, and 3.4.4. Foundations 4.1.1, 4.1.2, 4.1.3, and 4.1.4. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4.2.4. Windows, doors, and openings 4.3.3 and 4.3.4. Entrances 4.4.4 and 4.4.5. Roofs 4.5.4 and 4.5.6. Decks and patios 4.6.2. Waterfront modification 2.9.1 and 2.9.2. Findings of fact: the proposed project is within the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABC. The building site has unusual site constraints not typically found in the local district, and the proposed project is not incongruous with guidelines.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Which was very impressive recitation of all of that, by the way. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
It's an amendment.
Yes,
Amendment.
correct. So that's not needed. The amendment is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, quick question and just a rearrangement of some items. 219 East Front Street is Sarah's last project, and I'm requesting a continuance of that because this is an elevation request. This is brand new. SHPO, as we know, has to review it. They have not had the opportunity to do so yet. Can we go ahead and have a motion for a continuance of this item for the next month so SHPO can review it?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is to continue the application for 219 East Front Street pending review by State Historic Preservation Office.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Okay. I lied. Sarah does have one more project. I'm sorry. This is 718 Pollock Street. This is a request to include the construction of an accessory structure in the tertiary ABC.
Actually, I believe she has two more projects, right?
Yeah.
I thought you were doing both of them. I lied. I'm sorry.
I don't see it there.
I thought Soraya was doing them both.
Yeah, I didn't see
Yeah, I didn't see
718
it.
718 is
in our list.
It's not
Right.
So
We
It was
saw
just-
it at design review.
if it
It's not
hasn't
on the
changed,
list,
we
though.
can look at it from the design review folder.
I've got it. I printed it out here. I have it.
Okay.
I thought I was
Yeah,
going
nothing changed.
crazy. Is that like the right one? Oh no.
I got it.
There it is. I've got it here. That's fine. I can do it from these. This is 718 Pollock Street. It's the Captain's Stay. And what they are wanting to do is add a garage right in the rear here. There's already an existing cottage with existing parking. Let me show you some photos. So, I don't have a picture of the front, but I think everyone probably know the Captain's Stay. It's a yellow house near the Tryon Palace. They've got a quite big backyard and a really cute little cottage and a large tree here that kind of limited the placement of the garage. And so we're placing it right in this area as close to the 3-foot setback as we can, and then as close to the house as we can. This fence, actually we're not touching that fence right now, but there's a concrete break right here that we're going to come right up to. And so on the plan, if you see, it's about 12 feet off the house, the new garage. and it's pretty straightforward. We tried to just make it as minimal as possible. The cottage in the back really has quite a bit of character, and we debated whether to put a little bit more character in this garage, but at the same time, it's just, to me, it didn't warrant it. The back of the house is an addition that's very plain, and so it made more sense to just match it in with the back of the house and let that cottage keep its character and let the front of the house keep its own character. So it's just got a little bit of storage up top, metal garage doors, hardy board siding, asphalt shingles. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Commissioners, any conflicts of interest or concerns about completeness? Okay. Is there anyone who received notice that would like to speak either for or against the application? Anyone who may not have received notice but has information relevant and would like to speak for or against the application? Very well. Morgan, can you provide staff findings and recommendations?
Accessory structures, 261, 262, 263. Contemporary materials, 551, 552, 553, 555, and 556. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the proposed projects located within tertiary ABC. The proposed materials and design are appropriate. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you. Commissioners, discussion, questions for the applicant?
Are you gonna paint this?
It will be painted, yeah.
Anything further? If not, would someone care to make a motion?
I will, sir. I move that we find application for a certificate of appropriateness for 718 Pollock Street to be not in congruence with New Bern's Code of Ordinance sections 15411 through 15429 and New Bern's Historical District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of facts. Applicable guidelines: accessory structures 261, 262, 263, contemporary materials 551, 552, 553, 555, and 556. Findings of fact: the proposed project is located within the tertiary ATC. The proposed materials and designs are appropriate, and the proposed project is not in congruence with the New Bern guidelines, with the guidelines.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? COA is issued.
Thank you.
Okay. Now,
Do you have 7-Eleven?
we got to right in there. 711 Pollock Street.
Did we pass over
Do we
Middle
pass
Street?
Middle Street? What happened to 230 Middle?
I am just messing everything up tonight, guys. I am so sorry. We did skip over Danny. Can we do Danny real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, guys. Rubber test has got me. Okay, guys, this is 224 through 230 Middle Street. This is to include a facade change in the primary ABC, and I've got all of the drawings that Danny submitted. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's the bronchitis.
It really was. Okay. We're just gonna jump into pictures, because they say more than anything else, because it's still look great.
They're not great pictures, but it's good enough.
Go ahead.
So, everybody's familiar with this building, the old New Bernian Hotel.
There's actually 4 retail commercial spaces. There's 4 different facades. 3 of the facades all look the same. On 230 Middle Street, it collapsed. The facade was destroyed during the hurricane. And so as we rebuild the facade, we're asking to rebuild it like the other 3 facades that are associated with that building. And so basically, I just clipped a picture from one of the facades and just copied and pasted it right on top of 230 Middle Street. So it's really an 18-foot wide, basically 15-foot tall. Once you hit to the second story, it's all going to be, nothing's changing. It's just that little entrance of the commercial facade. The contractor said he honestly he was just going to take his he's just going to take his measuring tools, go measure a piece of wood a few feet over, and then come back and cut it and just replace it. So I think it's going to be a simple build out, but all 4 commercial spaces will look identical.
And that was it before?
Yeah, that's what it looked like before. That's what it looks like now. That's a picture from before.
That was after you did some renovations.
Yeah, after we put a little paint on it, some new lights, look good.
And it's gonna end up looking like.
And it's going to end up looking like that.
Right, but no tile.
No tile. No.
You have to do the final product.
That's what the final product is.
And that's just, owner's authorization. And that's the proposed sign for this one.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, very well. Commissioners, any conflicts of interest or concerns about completeness? Okay. Is there anyone who received notice that would like to speak either for or against the application? Anyone who may not have received notice but has information and would like to speak for or against the application? Hearing none, can you provide us with staff findings and recommendations, please?
Yes, staff submits the following sort of guidelines as appropriate to this application. Design principles 311, 312, 314, statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: a proposed project is located in the primary ABC. The proposed materials and design are appropriate. Your proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines, and staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations, at this time citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you. Commissioners, discussion or questions for the applicant?
I have an application for staff. Is it the address 224 through 230, or is it 230?
It's technically 224 through 230 on the Craven GIS because it's all one building. But your address is...
I have 3 of those spaces, but the address that collapsed was 230.
Right. It's the whole building is just one, and it's 224 through 230. And that's what's listed on the Craven GIS. But his unit is 230.
Unit receiving the work.
Right.
The unit receiving, the facade receiving the work is just 230.
Okay.
Just 230.
Oh.
It's a peculiar one.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, would someone care to craft a motion?
I would move that we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 230 Middle Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern District Historic Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Design Guidelines 3.1.1, 3.2, 3.1.2, and 3.1.4 state findings of fact: the proposed project is located in the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. Proposed materials and design are appropriate. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
Second.
Have that motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? COA is issued. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Okay. Now that we're finally back on track, sorry about that. We are back to 711 Pollock Street. This is a request to include the removal of wooden decking, stairs, ramp, and a portion of a metal roof in the tertiary EPC, and replacement with wooden stairs, decking, and metal roofing, with the addition of an entryway. She's removing plastic lattice that is in between piers, foundation piers, and replacing with reclaimed masonry in the secondary ABC. Go ahead, Cheryl. Oh, you.
You all saw this one at design review. It's a duplex, or actually a quadplex on Pollock Street, and in the rear there is this, I guess it's more or less like a fire escape out of the building, stairs and a ramp down, and you know, when you go back there, the way I described it at that meeting was like, it's like the game Mousetrap. You know, it's back there, it's a very rickety structure, it's really needs to come off. It's not actually very safe. And when they, you know, are going to go in and jack the building up, Sean Corcoran's going to come in and level the whole building and redo the underpinning and get rid of the plastic lattice and redo it with the Flemish bond that was original to the front pattern of the house and infill that area. What we're proposing to do is we're changing around a little bit of the structure on the inside, which is not complete yet, but we're going to take off this back, or we'd like to take off this back portion here. And then this is the rear without the stairs drawn. It's too much since it really needs to come off anyway. But it has this kind of two-tiered mansard roof, and in order to get access out of this attic space, which is a full height story up there, we're requesting to remove a portion of just that mansard roof to be able to get access back there. They've got a very small lot and would still like to be able to park in the rear. So what we've done is we've taken the minimal parking radius that we can achieve to get a car in and out there and move the porch columns in such a way that accommodate that turning radius while still giving them a new rear porch on all 3 floors of the structure. So you'd have decking, an emergent, a stair that's really required by code for the multifamily unit, accessed on each level that would be outside under a roof. So from the rear, we've widened it a little bit from design review in order to just maximize the space back there. You really, there's really nowhere you can see this yard from. When you're even in the backyard, it's hard to even see it anyway. And so what we would like to do is just take off this small portion in between the 2 dormers that are up there, leave those dormers in place, and then build the new deck structure around it. It's inset from the edges so that it is identifiably separate and can be removed at a later portion. Matching in with new brick piers and infill. Since it's decking, we would infill it with a wood louver at that portion. But really, for me, it's this that is maximizing that turn around there and getting at least some parking in that rear is what we were really trying to achieve. And that's it.
All right. Commissioners, are there any conflicts of interest or concerns over completeness? Okay. Is there anyone who received notice that would like to speak for or against the application? Anyone who did not receive notice that has information and would like to speak for or against the application? Hearing none, can we have findings and recommendations?
Design principles, 311, 312, 314, modifications, 321, 322, foundations, 412, 413, 414, roofs, 451, 452, 453, and 454, decks and patios, 462, statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the proposed project is located within the secondary and tertiary ABCs. The proposed materials and design are appropriate. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the Commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you. If you didn't see this one at design review, I can understand having a little trouble wrapping your head around it right now. If there are any further questions or discussion?
I did go look at this on site, and that is a huge mess back there. I mean,
Yes.
and actually,
Yeah.
really, really scary looking. Yeah, it really is a big mess that it just is all cobbled together.
Thank you for taking the time to go look at it.
Oh, I looked
is-
at every single thing.
Yes.
So,
Well, the mousetrap analogy is certainly apt. You might even have the boot and bucket.
So when you talk about removing some parts, can you show me the back view with the new set of elevations that you're gonna put in, and what is it you're going to remove? Yeah, show me that. Now, what is it you want to remove?
If you, let me go back to the images and show you.
Okay,
on
well, if
there.
you got a better image, then you can show me.
So, this, okay, right here. This is the front, but the rear is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't see the peak of this roof, but there is another roof that this is kind of the soffit up. So this is the mansard here. What we're proposing to do is take out this portion right in between the dormers and build a wall straight down from that soffit on the inside so they can get a door out. It's 8 foot tall there, but we were looking at trying to come out the window, but it's not tall enough. You can't actually exit out of it legally. And so we need enough head height, and we've got that if we take it from this bearing height back here. We've got enough height to get an actual exit door in there if we remove that portion of roof in between there and build a wall that comes straight down.
So are you
with a
gonna
door.
build a wall that comes out from where the roof is now?
No.
Between those two?
Well,
windows?
the wall would go straight down here. Let me go back and show you. Here. So we're proposing to take out that portion in the center.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from the side, it's this triangle right in there that's being taken out. Because the roof is sloping from here to here, if you look at it from the side, and we're gonna build a wall right where that dashed line is right there with an exit door that would then come out onto the porch, which is here. So the dormers are actually underneath.
So they're gonna go down
the
to this,
new
it's gonna be at an
roof.
angle.
Yeah, like that rectangle right there is
Mhm.
the angled plane of the roof.
Mhm.
Once that's gone, you bring the wall down straight vertical, and then you've got this little pocket.
Oh, I see, there was
Triangle shape.
okay, I'm with you now. I thought you were talking about
Sorry.
moving something on the edges of the
Yeah,
building.
yep.
Which was what was, when you talk about that triangle, I thought you were talking about the edge of the building, okay.
No, it's all on the inside.
It's on there, okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
And if somebody wanted to take that off in the future, they really could. Take it all off and build back that portion of the mansard roof. The dormers would still be there. It could go back.
Okay. And they can get down from each one of those elevations all the way down to the bottom?
Exactly.
They can
yeah.
walk from one down to the other to the other?
You can walk from here down to here to here to here, and then it kind of splits the deck up on each floor to have just a kind of a private, more private deck on each floor.
Mhm.
So
I got
that
it.
being one unit, you come out here, this being another unit, you come
I
out
got
here.
you.
And
Mhm.
with a central,
Mhm.
because we did have it over to one side, and it just, it's easier to put it in the middle and bring everyone down that center.
Well, and that lot doesn't have, once you put the house in, it doesn't have much land on either side.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's just,
It's very
It's stuck in
skinny.
there.
Yes, absolutely.
was this right next to the door, to the house right beside it, isn't it?
Well, Savvy's is next door on the other side, and then there's a fence, you know, on the
Oh, yeah, on the
southern
left-hand side, it belongs to the
Yeah.
house, yeah.
and that's tight.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, would someone care to craft a motion?
I will. I move that we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 711 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance sections 15411 through 15429 and New Bern's Historical District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines, design principles 311 through 314, modifications 321, 322, foundations 412 through 414, roofs 451 through 454, decks 462. Findings of fact, the proposed project is located within the secondary and tertiary ABCs. The proposed materials and design are appropriate. The proposed project is not in congruence with the guidelines.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Would someone care to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? COA is issued.
Thank you very much.
All right, and our last one tonight, this is 206 through 208 Metcalf Street. This is to include the replacement of a metal roof in the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs, to remove non-functional vents and non-functional chimneys in the secondary and tertiary ABCs, and this is Soraya's, and I'm just gonna turn it over to her. Do you want me to pull up the electronic copy, or do
Would you
have?
pull up the electronic copy? Thank you. Thank you for your consideration of our application for COA for 206-208 Metcalf. I'm Soraya Bliss, and I'm here with my partner, Jeremy McGraw, seeking permission, as Morgan said, to remove non-decorative, non-functioning mechanicals and replace the roof of the property. Just to ground everyone in the background of the property, I've compiled a brief history with supporting documentation, which I can take you through, and then as I cover it, I can just, Morgan, could you pull up the document? So 206-208 Metcalf, or the Spate House, was built 1770-1780. The structure's undergone many changes over its past 200 years to keep up with the evolution of our community and its needs. Between 1903 and 1913, the house was turned and an addition was added to the rear of the house, converting it into a duplex or possibly a quadplex. Around 1941 or 1942, during a housing shortage, the property was further divided to 8 units, and it continues to serve as a multifamily property to date. A chronology of changes, which is shown on the screen, through 1942 was put together by Peter Sandbeck, who you know is the historian and author of the Historic Architecture of New Bern in Craven County. While the changes the property has seen has served the communities of its time well, not all of the design and construction is viewed as historically significant or is considered to characterize the property. Mr. Sandbeck stated in a letter, quote, "I do not believe that the 1908-1913 rear addition and move of this structure has any inherent significance by virtue of either its design or construction. It stands only as a symbol of the intense need for housing felt by New Bern during the time period. Many more sensitive examples of such additions exist here. And an excerpt, do I just scroll up, from Mr. Sandberg's letter is it's right here. That was just the, it's right, that was the quote that I read. So as Jeremy and I take on our first and much needed work to this Spate House in many decades, top of mind for us is the Historic District's stated purpose to help preserve the historic character and architectural fabric of New Bern. Its stated goal to maintain our community's individual character and sense of place, and we also appreciate the stated intent of the guidelines not to prevent physical change or impose particular architectural styles, but to moderate change while protecting architectural gems and reducing dislocation caused by random change. To best protect and preserve the property itself, as well as create an attractive view for the public, we wish to remove, where possible, non-decorative, non-functioning vents, pipes, etc. Additionally, and arguably more importantly, this step helps ensure the structure's long-term integrity as well as helping to mitigate any safety concerns or issues caused by poor drafting, air quality, old pipes, old wires, etc. While much of the non-decorative, non-functioning mechanical removal process is work that will remain unseen as it's under the house or inside walls, there are some items that protrude on the exterior of the roof. We're seeking approval to remove non-decorative, unused vents, including 2 brick and mortar vents at the rear of the house. And then I also included in section 3 on page 6 of this document a historic survey expert noting only 2 chimneys at the front of the property. Other mechanicals and vents are not mentioned. Following the removal of the non-decorative, non-functioning vents and mechanicals that protrude above the roof line, we'd like to install a new metal roof according to New Bern historic guidelines. Oh yeah, and then sorry, I should scroll up and there's some pictures. There's a roof scope that was done by Bingle, who will probably do the roof, and then I have some pictures of what the current front of the house and the back of the house looks like with the non-functioning vents pointed out. That's all the historic survey. I included the whole entire historic survey just in case anyone wanted to know. If you keep going. Keep going. There's the roof scope, so that's the top of the roof. You can't even see the vents in the rear from the top. And then if you keep going, one more. This is the front of the house, and those are the decorative chimneys that were mentioned in the historic survey. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, that's the back of the house, and those are the non-decorative, non-functioning mechanical vents.
What were they originally used for?
I think like a stove or something was hooked up to them. There's no mantle, they're just little vents. I haven't torn out all the drywall or plaster inside, but there's no mantle or fireplace. I think they were just like a heat vent. Yeah. Yeah. That's just a shot of the inside. And then that's just the street view that the application called for.
And that's everything.
Thanks.
All right. Commissioners, any conflicts of interest or concerns over completeness? Okay. I'm not going to ask if anyone has any comments. There's no one left. Morgan, can we have staff findings and recommendations?
Roofs, 451, 452, 453, 454. Statements of reason based on information contained in the application and staff judgment are: proposed projects located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary ABCs. Proposed materials are appropriate. The vents are not character defining to the structure, and they cannot be viewed from the primary ABC.
and the proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends the commission approve the application for major exterior alterations at this time, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
All right, thank you. So, to be clear, there are the two brick chimneys that we see indicated on the two outside green arrows. The middle one is just a plumbing vent, like a pipe?
Yeah, that's just, I want to get rid of, and I'm a big fan of getting rid of any non-used mechanicals because all they do is cause problems or confuse people. So as we're doing the renovations in the home, anything that's not being used, I'm not 100% sure if that's being used. I don't think it is, but we'd like to just have a nice clean slate so we have a nice, totally watertight, solid roof on that structure.
Well, certainly you'll want to find out if your toilets are using that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We're moving a few things around in there, so.
And then there were some other things in the application, various things on the side of the building, old pipe penetrations that you're removing. Is that correct?
There are some penetrations on the side. When I looked, I couldn't. I don't think that any of them are able to be removed, but I do understand if I add or move anything, I will call. Morgan can tell you I'm very good about calling her for everything, and if we need to come back, we'll come back.
And so then the remainder is replacement of the standing seam roof everywhere it currently is right now in the same configuration.
Yes, we're trying to. I don't know if we're going to be able to fix it. I have a couple other calls out, and Steve Bingle's guys are going to come out and look at it again. We've had a couple persistent leaks, and we're doing renovations, so I'd like to fix it and fix it right and protect the house. If we can fix it, we will, and I'd love to be able to fix it. It's a lot less expensive, but if we have to replace it, we'd like to put on a standing seam metal roof.
Okay, so replacement's in the application.
It's in the application.
You may find it able to simply be repaired.
Yes, which would make it count overjoyed.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant or any discussion? All right. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we find the application for 208 Metcalf Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429 and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Guidelines 4.5.1, 4.5.2, 4.5.3, and 4.5.4. Findings of fact, the proposed project is located within secondary and tertiary ABCs. The proposed materials are appropriate. The vents are not character defining to the structure and cannot be viewed from the primary ABC. The proposed project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well. Would someone like to make a motion to issue the COA?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your COA is issued. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That is the final application to hear tonight, correct? All right. Any updates?
1229 National Avenue, we talked about that during design review about the fence staining. We let that be a minor work. 605 Pollock Street, stone window installation. 510 Craven Street, driveway installation. And that is all I've got for you tonight.
Very well. Any issues anyone would like to discuss?
Where are we at on our demolition by neglect?
11 Bern Street.
Yes.
His hearing's Thursday at 10. Oh, tomorrow.
What's that?
I'm sorry.
What did you just say?
His hearing with the chief building inspector is tomorrow at 10 in the chief building inspector's office if he shows up.
And that is the green sided house with the hole in the side?
That's the one.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, we put 230 Middle Street on DBN, but he is in the process of pulling building permits. He's working on the roof, so he is in compliance. He's not incurring fines presently. But we have a few more to add to that list too.
Do we have anything happening with East Front Street?
I'm sorry, sir?
The brick on East Front Street, the federal style brick that was on the list and got taken off the
Oh,
list?
she's accruing fines.
Hmm?
She's accruing fines. There's an outstanding order for the building inspector, and she's accruing fines. You're talking about 221 East Front, right? She's accruing fines right now. And minimum housing fines as well.
Yeah. Again.
All right, if there's nothing else, would anyone like to move that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
That was quick. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. We're adjourned.